That's good.
Do you like it?
I've no idea who it was by, though.
New single from Rufus Wainwright.
I like him.
The one you love.
Sir Bob Geldof is with us, and looking as ever, well, very presentable. I mean, you suddenly sort of turned a corner, didn't you, Bob? Because for
I was
years
always
you were
a fashion icon.
Well, no, you weren't. You were kind of a disaster area. Probably the Pope page in the Market for Advice or something. Or, Nelson Mandela saying, "Any idea whether I can get a discount from Mulberry?"
You're jealous.
Well, a little bit, but are we all?
I just heard your piano playing. Boy, you're jealous.
You can't. Can you play anything? I bet you can basically strum the basics on a guitar. Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm not
enough to make several hit records.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. More than several. How many? Give me that album over here. The Boomtown Rats. This is the best of. Is it the best of? The best of the Boomtown Rats.
Yeah.
Yes.
19 tracks on it.
Yes.
19 tracks. Out of how many albums? 4 or 5 albums? I'm just trying to remember.
6.
6 albums? Okay. But then you had several solo albums after that. You're not counting them in with that, are you?
No, I'm not.
No, okay. 6 Boomtown Rats. I didn't realise that. When you came to
You weren't
sit down...
very on the money in the 70s and 80s, were you? You wear those clothes now, of course, but at the time it was a little sad.
We're wearing virtually the same suit today.
Yeah, this is an 80s suit.
All right, now listen. Just calm down. All right.
Well, I just heard your piano playing. How could I possibly calm down?
I think there's a spot for me on the next tour.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
That's what Bob's thinking.
Yeah.
He keep mentioning it's like, he's sort of... This is the way musicians flirt with each other.
Yeah. Get rid of the crowd when it's end.
Oh, you should hear me on the squeeze box. All right, so when you came to select the track list of this, number one is, did you do it on your own, or did you do it with the rest of the Boomtown Rats, who are now scattered to the 4 corners of the globe?
Absolutely.
Goes. And secondly, well, I'll ask you the other question because it's a more detailed one, but did you do it with the other fellas?
No, one of the many websites, fan sites, did a poll saying which were the favourite tracks, and we did it on that basis.
So basically it's fan selected then?
Yeah.
That's very democratic of you.
Well, hey, I'm that sort of guy, or otherwise I couldn't give...
Are you a believer in democracy, though, Bob?
Yes.
It doesn't work, that, does it?
No,
it really, does it? I mean, that's the problem. It's a great idea in theory. It's like communism. It's a great idea in theory. What you really want is a bunch of enlightened despots, like you and I, for example.
Or your...
Or me.
Or
running
that
the country.
dog you have, which were boring the entire nation with.
You say that because you are obviously not a dog lover.
Yeah, well, you're right there.
Yeah, well, you see that. And do you like cats?
Yeah, they're sort of all right because they bugger off and mind their own business.
You're missing out on so much, Geldof, in life.
I had a good dog, Growler. He was a good dog.
And when did he die?
Old Growler, he has gone. You got old Shep there.
I can't help but think he's mocking my love of the four-legged friends.
No, Growler was good. He was very independent, wouldn't walk in a lead. He was a Yorkshire Terrier who just grew. He kept growing. But in the 80s, and I'm not trying to get onto this, in fact, get off it, but during the Band-Aid stuff, I used to bring him around because nobody else would look after him. And so... one time, I'm not going into anecdote mode, but it's a good one.
Hey, no, I love it. I'm just sitting there, I'm getting settled in. I'm thinking, because let's face it, if you can hear someone tell anecdotes, I'd rather it be you.
I had to go and see Thatcher, as you do. And there was no one to look after Growler. And I was going through a sort of vaguely keep fit regime, so I had my bicycle with my, little basket in the front, and Growler was sitting there because he couldn't run along because he was a small dog. Yeah. And... we sat there at this table, and Mrs. Thatcher was there looking immaculate, and the advisors down each side, and Growler, I was at one end of the table, and Growler was on my lap with his paws up on the Downing Street table, just looking down the table, his head just peeping on bit of an icebreaker.
She probably thought Dennis had kept him for his afternoon gin. You can just imagine the blue lady looking down at that and thinking, well, the lady may be for turning now. If it's Sir Bob, you weren't Sir Bob then, of course, were you? What a strange turn of affairs for you to wind up Sir Bob, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you earned it, I feel, but at the same time, when you were in this band, for example, I remember seeing the first video I saw of you, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like a big London party scene.
Yeah.
And Paula was in it. It was one of those kind of like...
It was Diamond Smiles.
That's right. I remember seeing that video. I'd seen you on TV before, but I'd never seen the video. And I remember thinking, OK, this is a great rock and roll band. They're a great fun post-punk band. But I thought, well, you maybe got a year left. And that's it. And now suddenly, you are who you are. What a remarkable career trajectory.
Well, we didn't have a year left. We've got huge numbers of hits left, actually, John.
But no, but I mean, at the time I felt that way. Okay, I felt that way at the time. I don't mean that to be
it is weird. I mean, but I think we've talked about it before. It's I've boringly said it feels like you're in a soap opera, and it does. And it's not that there's the celestial scriptwriter happening or anything, but suddenly you're in the middle of something you had no idea was going to happen. You kind of look around and say, "What's going on now?" Okay.
But you say that, but that doesn't happen to other people. You see, it really doesn't happen to other people in that way. I mean, sure, other people get invited along to things. You get invited along maybe to, an equivalent event like a Live Aid or a big thing. But you've actually instigated that. You pushed that along. And there is something about you which obviously is different to your contemporaries. Maybe you're not the person to talk about that because obviously it requires a certain, objectivity, which I wouldn't have thought would have been your strong point, Bob.
It's oh, you can have fun on
What's wrong with that? I'm being nice. All right, let's talk about... Hey, do you remember an Irish band called Radiators from Outer Space?
I do, yeah.
They were a good band, weren't they?
Well, on the... Not just the best of, but the record company has re-released the Rats' 6 albums on CD, which I think only 2 of them were on CD. And they got a bunch of people to write essays about the time and the place and where the Rats fitted in it. And the 4th one was written by Philip Chevron, who's now in the Pogues. But Philip started the Radiators from Space.
They had a great single called $1 Million Hero.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they were very good. I saw them live at the Nashville in Kensington.
We don't care. I mean, can you imagine how boring you're in your car?
I was there, ladies and gentlemen. I was there in the trenches in 77. Okay, now here's the question I was going to ask you. This is the second part of my question from everyone, okay? When you went back, or rather when the fans went back to look at the 6 albums, presumably you were aware of the content. When you're listening back to a body of work like that, are you aware at the time, okay, there's some singles that just don't, some tracks that don't stand the test of time, some which felt to us perhaps like fillers? Because whenever you buy an album, apart from maybe very few albums, there's stuff you don't fancy much. And I'm always curious, as a band, were you aware of that at the time? Did you think, well, that's not as strong, but we're going to go with it anyway? Or do you have kind of an equal love for all the tracks on your album when they come out?
No, because some of the songs work in the context of that moment and the album you're making. And, you have always leftover songs, and you think, that's a cool song, but it doesn't fit in with this thing. And at that time, because it was plastic vinyl, you could only fit in a certain amount of tracks.
Right.
And it began to disintegrate the sound very quickly over a certain limit.
When you got to the centre of the record, wasn't it? I believe there was less kind of quality as well.
Well, there was a sort of a hole, a sort of almost an existential hole, Are you serious? Was that a serious question?
I read somewhere. No, it was a serious question. I wonder whether you felt...
You lose the bottom end, and you would try and save it up almost to keep it in those tracks there. Rat Trap sounded quite weak, placed as it was in the album almost at the end, because we thought that was the big album track.
Yeah.
And if you were around in '76, which clearly you were by the looks of things, then you'll remember that there was this sort of critical Taliban going around, and as the Rats didn't fit into the whole nihilistic punk thing, which was a London thing, and we were paddies.
Too poppy as well.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't know where we were. So we thought... And we kept getting criticised for putting out singles. And we thought, okay, well, this is this good album track, and this is the basis for an album called A Tonic for the Troops. And... of course, Next Minute was the first #1 we had, but that was to be our big calling card, as we're a serious musical band. Yeah. But it was placed at the inside of the album because we didn't think it was going to be a single, and there's very little bottom end, and this is getting muso-ish. So when you go back and remaster them for CD, you can put all those things back in the way you record them.
That must be a nice feeling.
It is. And the other thing is, obviously, I don't go home every night and think, I think I listen to myself.
You say that?
No, I do say that, of course, just for the show. But I hadn't heard lots of them, and the records I thought, weren't that great in the first place, now, of course, turn out to be the ones you like best.
Isn't that weird? Let's talk about that after this. We've got to go up the news. We'll talk some more with Sir Bob after the news. 88 to 91 FM. This is Radio 2 from the BBC. That's the Future Heads with their version of The Hounds of Love. We played that a few weeks ago, didn't we?
Yeah,
and we enjoyed it.
21st of Feb.
You listen to Radio 2. I am chatting here with Sir Bob Geldof. He's bought all of the... well, apparently he carries these around with him wherever he goes. Is that right, Bob? All the old Boomtown Rats
I do, because, wherever I am, I want to hear myself.
Do you have yourself on your own iPod? Do you have an iPod?
No, I don't.
You don't have an iPod?
I don't have email or fax or anything.
What's going on with you if you don't have an
It's too much fiddling and charging.
Wow, getting old.
No,
getting old.
I didn't have them back when I was 14.
Do you text on the phone?
I do. Yeah,
you do
text.
Presumably your kids can email for you though if you need to.
I don't need to, Jonathan.
What if I wanted to send you a nice email tonight having a
That's
chat?
the point. I will never receive your emails, which is exactly the point.
You want to get yourself one of these things? Look, I've got the same...
You're so tragic. Look, and also it's disturbing the line of your not finely cut suit.
Oh, it's a not so finely...
So now you're going to have to get a handbag.
I like the idea of it. There's nothing wrong with that man bag. I've got a little black handbag. That's something to take out of me. If I'm in Europe.
John, you're going to have to do something about the stomach.
Oh, look at that.
I know, and you hide behind your desk and telly. That is... Oh. Johnny
Look,
Vegas or what? Now we know. You just have him on so you look good beside you.
That's where my piercing used to be.
Stretch marks.
I've eaten a lot recently, yeah. And you know what? Happy with it. Happy with it.
But as you should be if you're 14.
Oh, you see, he always promises so much when he comes in. It gets down to the level of the playground. We start attacking each other. The Boomtown Rats started when? Was it 74, 75? You guys?
Summer of 75.
Summer of 75. And you were how old then?
I was 22.
What, 22 years old. Never been in a band before?
No.
Had ever sung in a band before?
No.
Wow, that's quite something to suddenly be... And then how long before you had your first hit from that
A
period?
year and a half.
That's quite a while, I guess, isn't it?
Not if you live in Ireland. Don't forget that Ireland wasn't like people are now. They go over for a weekend. They think it's cool. It's very wealthy.
Well, it is, and it's very cosmopolitan, isn't it? So.
Then it was Planet Ireland. It was to the west of Wales, you know. I mean, really, people in Britain didn't think about Ireland unless you were, you know, a Paddy family living here in the first place, or you had relatives over there. You didn't really think about it. And so it did exist in a sort of cultural isolation, which was encouraged by the government then. You know, we were apart and separate. And, you know, there was this great inferiority complex, and the church-state compact was very tight in Ireland. And it was, you felt removed, and here was this great stuff happening everywhere but where we were, and it was coming in on the airwaves, and you just wanted to plug in.
I have a feeling, looking back from the far more comfortable viewpoint we have now, it reminds me of when I read about Spain under Franco, and then the period of freedom and liberation that occurred.
It was very like, because I worked in Spain during Franco's period. I was an English teacher there, and I was a sort of hippie, and I was basically drunk for a year in the desert and teaching these unfortunate teenagers to gibber in sort of Irish, sort of accented English. And you'd be picked up all the time at night by the Guardia Civil, who'd wander around with machine guns. I mean, it was weird. I mean, it felt a bit weird, but it didn't feel too weird. And of course, in retrospective, it was.
The first time I went to Belfast was about 81, 82, and I remember being so shocked seeing soldiers with guns sitting on the back of cars.
Well, that was weird coming from the south as well, because we couldn't get Spangles. Do you remember Spangles?
Of course, we all remember Spangles, the great lost sweet of our youth.
Exactly. And we weren't allowed fireworks in the south, and there was no need for them because we didn't celebrate Guy Fawkes, obviously. But so on Halloween,
why would you?
We'd take the radio train to Belfast. A radio train was a train with a microphone in it, where the guy would hold literally his transistor up to the microphone and pipe it through the carriages.
And that was cool.
Yeah. And well, it was cool enough. We had Father Coughlin used to commandeer the radio during the school trip to Belfast, and he'd get, you know, individuals up to sing, and my party piece was a Cliff Richard song from Summer Holiday. He said, "Get off, Geldof." He said, "You hopeless, young, feckless, young trout." And I'd be whipped off in mid-verse. But we'd get there and we'd buy smuggled bangers and Spangles back. And it used to freak us out seeing guns and stuff, you know, and the border and stuff. You know, weird. Weird time.
You know, when Nelson Mandela was finally freed from his unjust imprisonment, I believe his first major shock was finding out the Spangles were no longer freely available.
No, that's not true.
Well, you say that, but I don't know whether you can back up that information.
Because I used to send them from Belfast to Oliver Tambo's partner, who did sneak him.
Who snuck him into visiting time.
Yeah, you know, in his sandwiches.
Life is bleak, but thank God for the Spangles. What do you consider...
Good name for a band, actually. Wasn't that a girl band, the Spangles?
The Spangles wouldn't be bad. What do you consider to be your primary sort of, well, not job, but your activity now? What do you do? If someone were to say, what does Bob Geldof do? Because we don't think of you as being a singer as such anymore. We know you do sing and you still have a band, but I'm curious as to how you feel about what you do now.
Well, you would think of me as a singer, John, if you paid my records, but there's not much I can do about that.
Lord,
you know, I make several, and around the world they sell just as many as the Boomtown Rats.
Now, hang on a second, though. You know what I'm talking about, though. People have, because you've become so well known for other things you do, people now think of you, I think they think of you primarily as just Bob Geldof.
That's true.
And then they think about, he still makes music, he's still involved in, you know, with the Live Aid legacy and so on and so forth, and keeping that alive. But it's not kind of like, you're not defined by any one thing anymore, I don't think.
And that's confusing, and it doesn't bother me that much anymore. But the passport says musician, and were you to say, abroad, what is it you do? Instantly I say musician. I do about 100 gigs a year. I come in here occasionally and plonk a few tunes with you, and now you'll be insisting on going along with the piano in Japanese.
Next time we get together, it's going to be, I think it's going to put the Pogues to shame. It's going to have real soul.
What can I say to that? I'm staring at this man, trying to think of things to say. His stomach is lapping over his over-tight peg.
I said, why can't we have the bloke in the pyjamas? I said, sure, I'll talk about the Reds. Why can't we have the real talent in the band?
So, yeah, I do about 100 gigs a year, make albums, they do well, but you're quite right. I think people sort of, I got the Brits thing a couple of days ago.
Yeah, now how was that? How was the whole evening? How was the Brits? How did it
was great, but it's sort of your gold watch. Now, please go away and don't make any more records.
Yeah, you don't really want that, do you?
No, but it is great to have, the greatest names in pop saying this. In fact, you're totally misguided. This man is one of the great musical geniuses of our generation. So I paid Bono and Bruce and Elton, obviously, quite a lot of money to say this.
You are generally regarded, I believe, as a huge creative talent, as a force to be reckoned with in the music world. No, there's no doubt about it. But of course, that has been all eclipsed by your work with Live Aid, which there must sometimes, I think, there must be times when you think, it's a shame.
Yeah, I get fed up of... no, I don't get fed up. No, let me see. I have to be careful because I said something in an interview recently. I said, I got sick of being Mr. Bloody Africa. Of course, it was, the Financial Times then did this huge thing, which got picked up then everywhere.
I'm not trying to lead you down any route.
But where... If I go into a studio or if I talk about music, then I change, I become really interested. The other stuff I have to think about whenever I say something, I'm probably going to make a fool of myself, or you're in the middle of a negotiation, or you're trying to get something, you have to be very careful. And you have to be on your mark all the time. Music is intuitive to me. I've been doing it for 30 years. So I go into a studio, or if you start plonking along the piano, I'll pick up a guitar and plonk along with you. And it's fun, and it's just instant and intuitive and instinctive. And I would love to not do this other stuff. And it's not that anyone's forcing me to. It's just that I can do it, and therefore I think I should. So that's it.
No, it's great that you do it, and rather you than me. Because really, it's taken over your life. And not that I would have the ears somewhere, but I look at you and think, you made that sort of situation for yourself out of the best possible motive. And now you are kind of trapped in that, really. Because
I would do it anyway. Yeah,
but it would take a very selfish person to walk away.
No, it's not that. It's to do with the fact that I know too much and that I have the access now and I can push it. And it's taken 20 years to get it from being, this sounds like speechifying, but it's true, from being an idea of charity to justice. And so suddenly the guys with the guitars and the keyboards are helping to formulate bizarre world policy, but that's true. And
are we going to get rid of that?
Go this year would be stupid.
Is that world debt, or is the
all
debt?
Of it.
Do you think that's kind of?
Yeah, I mean, let's not go into this in this program because I listened to you on Saturday, and the last thing I want to hear is this sort of stuff. But the thing is, the totality of the mess that is happening in Africa is easily achieved, and it should happen this year when Blair and Brown, who watch Live Aid all day and who cut their political teeth on it, the awareness that this country could actually do something.
Lead the way.
And he's president of the European Union, president of the G7, 20th anniversary of Live Aid, 10th anniversary of Comic Relief, bizarre confluence of society and politics. Doesn't happen this year up in Gleneagles, then it ain't going to happen. And anyone who sort of considers this for a moment, or who was part of that Live Aid thing, or indeed Band Aid 20, which made $30 million in the 4 weeks over Christmas, should stay on red alert for July, because we want to nail that on the head. So that's that done, and let's go back.
Let's mobilise. Let's get together. I'll join you.
Will you?
Yeah, I'll protest with you.
Will you?
It's
going to be big.
Well, maybe
it's going to be big and long.
I'll help serve the tea. All right?
Well, it's good to see what Damon did.
That was very nice, wasn't it?
He was so great. I mean, Damon is a great writer,
and apparently he makes a very good cup of tea.
Yeah, but he's such a cool guy. I like him a lot.
He's a very lovely guy.
He's a good guy.
Band Aid. You mentioned Band Aid. You mentioned Live Aid, of course. I watched the Live Aid DVD of the event. Of course, I watched it going out, like so many people did in this country. Of course, we all did. It's a defining moment for our generation and the generation before us as well, I guess. And those that are yet to come, we bore them with it. But I watched it again. The band that came out of it best, quite clearly, just in terms of performance, watching it back, and I hadn't remembered enjoying so much today. Do you know who I think I'm going to say?
Well, not Queen, obviously, because that's the normal one.
Oh, it was Queen. I didn't know.
That's the one everyone
Did everyone
says.
say that?
Yeah.
I didn't know everyone said that.
Yeah, everyone
The
says
day
Queen.
after, it was Queen.
Well, I
of the
didn't
day.
realise that. I thought I was being quite bold then.
If you'd said someone else...
Mr. Popular Culture, you know.
Queen were really good. That's all I want to say. I didn't realise
They
that.
were beyond good.
Yeah, they were really good. Did
But
you realise that at the time?
At the time,
Yeah.
everyone just stopped. I mean, I was running up to the room where they were making the announcements, and that's when I did my whole, thing that people go on about.
Yeah.
And anyway, on the way up, the sound suddenly sounded amazing up at the top of Wembley, and I looked over and saw them doing the Radio Gaga.
Yeah, that's the other one. That's We Are the Champions, isn't it?
Yeah, no, all we need is Radio Gaga. Well, whatever, one of them.
That's We Will
Mama
Rock
ain't
You.
a man, did it, picking on the pan and a sticking on in the gun. A man someday,
Is that
blood
your
on your
Japanese
face,
lesson?
love some in the race.
Is it a common knowledge that he's learning Japanese?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's not bore.
How about
everyone with
that? People thought Freddie
anyway,
was back.
They sounded just unbelievable.
No, it's because they were the stadium band, I guess. Of all the bands that played that day, I guess they were the ones
I think
most comfortable.
what people forget is that it looked like they were on the way out at the time.
Yeah.
That was the feeling. I don't think they got that, but I didn't know them, and I was trying to get at them. They were in Australia. I think they just finished a world tour, and they were a bit exhausted and feeling, what do we do next? And I was getting no comeback, and then I got Jim Beach, who's a nice guy. He said, look, Bob, Fred is exhausted, he's just not going to do it. And then I spoke to Rog Taylor, who I'd seen at punk gigs. He was very involved, he liked all that stuff. And I spoke to him, and he said, well, I'd be up for it. He said, but Fred, anyway, Fred came on the line, and I said, Freddie, and I didn't know him at all, and I said, if there was ever anything that you were born to do, darling the world, and I said, this is it, like, every TV station on the planet, and it was that, he suddenly saw himself doing what he did, and they totally got it. He said, well, what is it? And I said, 20 minutes, you do your hits, you're not allowed to do album tracks, it's the global jukebox. And they nailed it. They just put this medley of 20 minutes of just unbelievable stuff, and they were amazing. But having said that, I've just done Australian TV before I came here, and the guy was watching the DVD, and like you, he saw it, and they just said, it's just so superb, and I've nothing to do with it, so I'm not trying to plug it or that. I'm just saying that I only saw it for the first time on DVD. I was there, but I didn't see it, and it's just, there are bands on that DVD playing way beyond their capability. Really, I don't know what was going on.
Well, it was obviously the moment. It was,
they're amazing performances. They're the defining performances.
But
of
there's
some
a
of those
bill
groups.
you're never going to be on again. There you're playing with everyone.
Yeah, but
anyone you'd want to be with or be near or be associated with, they're playing on that same bill.
I know.
And Madonna.
Well, my mob watched it, and obviously, they know about it, but they sat and watched it. They were going, God, that's amazing, Dad. Did you see so and so? Yeah, hello.
Dad, where were you? Yeah, well, I was there the whole time.
And also King Mullet, of course.
Mullet, Mullet.
Mullet from Mars,
But he really did look like he was fresh off the boat in those days, didn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
but that tipped them up because people realised what an amazing band they were on that day.
That broke them. And there were a few people as well. I mean, the Quo were fabulous.
They
actually.
were great. Again, opening the thing. And, I was sitting beside Prince Charles, and he said, who are these chaps? And I said, status quo, sir. And he said, why are they playing? And I said, I just thought that they're sort of a cartoon version of rock and roll. I said, they wear denim jeans, and I said they play 3 chords, and they've got long hair, and they play Fender Telecasters, which is like the standard instrument of he's an incredible sense of rhythm. And he was there doing this sort of spasmodic Protestant English sort of, arrhythmic leaping. And we used to call it the Protestant lep in Ireland. See the students from Trinity College trying to dance. It was always fun.
We've just had Alistair McGowan on the phone. He's asking you to stop doing impersonations. He's worried he's going to lose his job. You're too good at them. That's a very good Prince Charles. It's a very good. And I wish you could see the face. He's not actually sticking the ears out, but he's doing something with the lower jaw that's uncanny. Uncanny. Let's have another piece of music. We'll talk to Bob Smith after this. What are we going to play?
We're going to play the track that...
Oh, yeah, this is great. OK, would you introduce this for us, please?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that I found and we put on the DVDs from the periods that the records came out, unused tracks or demos of the time. My favourites are these very early ones, about 14 weeks after the band started. So none of us had played in bands really, and but I came across these and mixed them up, and you can see where we're coming from: the Stones, the Faces, the Downliner sect, and all that sort of stuff. But it was a cool band. I mean, and this is exactly what we sound like. It would have been a good band to go and see.
It would have been a great night out. That's great. That's really good. But it sounds kind of like almost like early English freak beat from the early 60s, and then it sounds like early Feel Good, and there's a Rolling Stones thing there. So these are all your kind of influences coming in.
Yeah, R&B, early R&B. But the thing was, when we got together in the basement of Johnny Fingers, is the piano player you keep talking about.
I like Johnny.
Yep. And his brother had a flat, so we got together, and this first afternoon, like acoustic guitars and, you know, some pathetic cushion as a drum sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, what'll we play? And Gary, the guitar player, immediately went into China Grove by the Doobie Brothers, because he knew they were ding, and like, okay, ding, and it was so crap. Yeah. And then Jerry, the other guitar player, he liked country blues, Big Bill Brunsey. Fingers was a Beatles fan club member when he was a kid, so he was into the melodic structure of piano and all that. I liked Bowie and Roxy and that sort of stuff, and the Velvets.
Yeah.
And I don't know, so it was... The potential to do stuff was all there because we liked all these disparate things, but by the end of the evening it was so crap, the endless riff from China Grove, that we just stop. What do we all like?
But it's interesting you mention those references, because I think Boomtown Rats were very much an underrated band because they came around at the same time as punk.
Yeah.
You know, so essentially you were immediately tarred with that brush. You were saying you were a punk band, and you weren't really a punk band.
Not at all.
You were energetic. You had the same level as performance.
But also the look appeared to them to be a copy of punk, but punk happened in 76, and what happened to us was we kind of looked like the Dr. Feelgood with sort of tight suits at the beginning, long hair, and then because we were trying to, well, how do we define a difference in Dublin? So our hair got shorter because the other bands had long hair, and so the tight sort of stuff stayed. And Robert said Gary had a sort of, you know, leathery thing going on there, and you can see that the Oxford bags.
Yeah.
You know, so when we pitched up, it was sort of, it kind of looked like what the kids were doing here.
But that's what's interesting about the Irish bands. If you look at the early photographs of the Undertones in that period, and I saw the Radiators, they didn't dress the same way as English punk bands did, because there was still a kind of, there was...
Well, they didn't dress at all. The Undertones were anoraks, and just what a kid would wear, jumpers.
On a council estate in Ireland, presumably. But you look at I don't know which one that is wearing the Oxford bags there in your band.
Jerry.
All right, and there's no way you could have gone on stage in an English punk band wearing those. You'd have been booed off. There'd have been an uprising. It would have been not pretty. Whereas they seemed perfectly acceptable. I now look back on Oxford bags with great fondness.
I was trying to dig mine out only yesterday.
I actually once had alarming...
yours, of course, anymore. I do.
I had a terrible incident involving my Oxford bags, if you'd like to hear about it.
No.
I was running for...
Well, I can imagine what it's going to be, so I think...
No, you can't.
I said, no, I don't want to hear it. And
so full of himself. So full.
I said,
just
no,
because you saved a couple of million people,
you know.
I was running for the bus, the 262, that went down Langston Hubbard from Stratford.
Yeah, we're all interested.
The heel of my platform shoe got caught in the turn-up of my very large Oxford bags. I went flying. Not only did I rip the knee of Oxford bags, I tore the elbow of my long, fashionable black Mac overcoat I was wearing at the time. Now you say people aren't interested. I beg to differ, Geldof. And I think you're going to take that home and you're going to treasure that little story, aren't you?
No.
He is really. Bob, Best of the Boomtown Rats sounds great. I find it quite... interesting and amazing that you let the fans choose the lineup for you there, the actual track list for you. I think that's a kind of a very bold democratic thing to do. I would have myself wanted to choose them personally, but hats off to you for letting them have a say. He's obviously
gone?
You know what? He's realised now what a mistake it was. No, but you know, it's a strange.
What was the favourite? What was the number one that they picked in order of which they liked? It was a song called Dave, which I'm thrilled about because I liked that song a lot, and it was on this last record, which I thought was my favourite Rats one. In fact, my favourite one is this one here. 5 Deep, which turned out after listening to them all was my favourite one, which sold, you know, relatively.
Okay, now hold on. Well, let's put that on. We were going to put Dave on, but let's put five. Is it 5? What track on 5 Deep is your favourite of all?
I don't know. God. Well, put on the first one because just listen. This is.
He Watches It All is the track. This is from 5 Deep. And which number of the albums was this?
This was the 5th.
That would be why it's
actually,
called
you're
5
learning
Deep.
Japanese, right?
Yeah.
People used to call it V Deep. because it's got a Roman numeral V for
Yeah.
5. In fact, I took it for a Japanese expression for guaranteed female orgasm.
V-deep.
Yeah, 5 deep. 5 deep, 6 shallow. Thrusts, Jonathan. So
You see, that's the kind of Japanese they're not teaching me. I'm just on adding up right now. All right, this is from the 5 Deep album. This is the title track, and this is...
no, it's not the title track. This is just the first track. He watches it all. I just like it. It's no significance particularly.
Let's have a listen. Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm surprised at how much I enjoyed that. Because I'd never heard this album before.
No,
That's
not
really
many
good.
people have. I have to say.
Who produced that? Because it had a great sound.
Visconti.
Tony Visconti,
Yeah.
who did so much work with Bowie and also worked with Lou Reed, didn't he?
He did, and he did 2 of the albums. He did Mondo Bongo, which has got Banana Republic, which was a huge hit, and those sort of ones. In fact, there's a track on this. He's a recorder freak. I mean, he lived with Bowie in that house in Kent.
Yeah.
And he took all those pictures of the Mark Bolan album, the Spider-Man, all those famous pictures.
Oh, he did those pictures?
He did the photos of that, and he was in Mark's band and that, and he produced all the great Bowie albums. And but he plays recorder. I mean, the lamest instrument. I mean, did you have to learn recorder in school?
Yeah, everyone has a little recorder spell.
But he's got 60 recorders.
Yeah,
He's got a bass
problem.
recorder, and he insisted. I let him do a recorder solo. I want to just shut up and take them away. And he did this mega 60-part record. I cut it out of the re-releases.
So it was no good.
I was just shy, just
Just for recorder aficionado.
Yeah.
Bob, lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for coming in.
Jonathan.
The Boomtown Rats, you going to play together again ever, do you think?
No.
Never?
No.
There you go, that's a succinct answer. You can't really draw him any further on that. I think, was there a glimmer of hope there?
No, I don't think so.
That's just
No.
And not even any regret either. Really. Bob, great to see you again. I hope the Best of the Boomtown Rats does as well as it deserves to do.
Thank you, mate.
And these all out again. They've re-released all the early albums, but they put them out on CD for the first time.
For the first time, yeah.
Well, the one I recommend you go and buy first up is V-Deep.
5 Deep, yeah.
Yeah, which no one got the first time around. Now's your chance to make up. A terrible injustice can be put right.
I couldn't agree. You said it better.
Yeah, and I'm looking slim, aren't I, Bob?
Jonathan.
Don't start.
Perfect.